Hello, thank you for being with us in our New Life educational series with Dr. Michael Laitman. Hello, Dr. Laitman. Hello, everyone. Hello, Nitza Mazuz. And today we want to invite you for a special conversation that will summarize the journey we took together in dozens of last talks we had. We spoke here lately about Israeli society, the society that we live in. And many, many programs ago, we took this journey with you. What's the journey? A journey in which we'll find a good equation for the new life. I'm saying it as a person who's almost 40. I have 4 kids. I'm a completely average citizen. In Israel, we work very hard, my wife and I, day and night, and we can't finish the month. We're not happy with school. We're not happy with this, that. Life isn't wonderful, and I don't want life to continue like this. I want my life to be amazing before they end, like all the other smart people before me. I want to succeed in life in a maximal manner, and I feel that many people feel like this. They don't want to live life in parva. They want to live life to the fullest. We took this journey together. We tried to find with you the equation for a good life here in Israel, how we can do something new, because the spirit of renewal and a need for renewal is felt completely. Everywhere that you go, wherever you go, you see that things aren't going in the right direction, and what's even more worrying, in the horizon you don't see anything good. Therefore, from that place where there's no hope, there's no future, we took this journey to look for the form, the correct form, the perfect form for living here as a society, all of us together and each of us as individuals. And what happened on this journey that we took, we talked about Israeli society, and somehow we also reached the Jewish culture, our roots, without any connection to Orthodox or secular, religious, but our original root. And we discovered that the equation for a good life is that we connect together and create a network of connections like one family. Like that ancient sentence that we all know to say very well, love thy neighbor as thyself. The entire wisdom and the entire Torah, not just apparently, but truly is talking about that. If we all decide together that if we take it as a national mission, with all the means that we have, we go in this direction, then we're going to open a door to a new life for ourselves. And the goal of this discussion is that we'll try to summarize all the insights that we saw on this journey, all the stations, so that we'll get from all parts of the puzzle a single part that we'll see, wow, this is how we want to live. That's my goal in our discussion today. And I'd like to say the first question. The first question is, what is there about this image of one family, of living like one family, that precisely in this equation of connection between people, there's warmth, security, a feeling that tomorrow will be good as well. Also some inner satisfaction that you can't buy with money, you can't buy with personal achievement. What is there in the connection between us that precisely between us is the key to the new life? In a scientific manner, it's called equivalence of form with nature. That we, by the fact that we start to connect between us as equals, in unity and connection and completion and mutual responsibility, in that we're creating a system that is precisely matched to the general system of nature. And then we get into balance with all of nature, with the forces operating on me that operate us, that advance us, the forces of nature that we're discovering, that we know somehow, forces that we haven't discovered yet, but they're shaping our destiny, our path that we're going through. in development, even in evolution. With all these forces, we're getting into balance. We spoke about it, that the whole problem of man on earth is that compared to still inanimate vegetative, he uses his will to receive in the incorrect manner. He uses it in an egoistic manner. Instead of living in a normal manner, just to take what he needs to exist for his body, and everything else, science, his development, his technology, society, culture, education, commerce, everything that he developed with his brain, it all needs to go not to our corporal life. We only need a certain amount for our body. You supply it with necessary things, rational things. And everything else, you need to put towards the development of the man inside you. That's the spiritual part of you. It's culture, education, connection between us. It's getting to know the soul, finally. Getting to know our life, where we're from, what manages us, what urges, what acts, what desires, characteristics, where we're headed to, what's happening with us. All these things you can attain by being in accordance with nature, by matching nature. When we're in a circle in our connection, when we become as one in harmony between us, and we get into harmony with nature, then we get into the law of resonance, of equivalence, and then we can feel those same forces that are potentially there in nature, but they're hidden. They're not felt in us because we're inside the material, and then we can discover them. And then suddenly we'll open up a great new space of discovering the significance of life. What's happening in this life? Not that we can supply ourselves here with good life, calm, equal life, relatively between everyone in our 70 years, but rather we can also rise up to a higher standard internally of nature, where we live not in our body, but in our spirit. And there's plenty of proof from science that we can attain it, but only on the condition that we don't get far away from nature, but that we'll be all for nature, that will identify with nature, that will connect between us with nature. And that's what we need to aspire to. A person lives from spirit. Many of us think, if I'll have vacation for a month in some fancy place, if I go around the world, if I build apartments for all my children, if we see that a person doesn't become filled from that and is never satisfied, is never happy. A person lives from his spirit, and we see that joy doesn't come from that. The richer people get, and the more they have abilities, a European person has abilities that people didn't have 100 or 200 years ago. And what? They're committing suicide. They're abusing drugs, depression, desperation, drug abuse, We're getting further from happiness. And therefore, we need to make an accounting, not just about life, but how can we open for ourselves a knowledge base that's hidden, that exists in nature, that arranged our life in such a manner that it's like we're underwater, we're taking ourselves slightly out, and we're breathing, we're looking around 70 years, and then we go down again into something. What kind of process are we going through? We can discover if we glue ourselves to nature, truly. I'm saying adhesion because it's a very, I'd say, it's the key. If we glue ourselves to nature, then we will know the secret of life. What exists inside this flow of life that we live without knowing, getting up, going to eat, going to sleep, giving birth to kids, look after them. We do everything automatically, and we live, and we finish it, and we go. We will know the secret of life. What's happening with us? What motivates us? What forces of nature are acting on us? And what is the reason for all these things? Because the more we study, there's a reason for everything, especially for the creation of life, of such wonderful, complex things, and without any purpose. We just don't see it. They're doing an experiment on us, apparently, and we don't know what it is. And the opportunity is there. But the opportunity is implemented by you gluing yourself to nature, to getting into it, and don't interrupt it. Be exactly like nature. Nature is completely integral. Nature is mutual. Nature exists in mutuality and connection. Like particles, like elementary particles, atoms and molecules got together, and then greater connections until the body was created. Look what a machine that works from the connections of forces, parts, limbs, separate, opposite, but they connect in such a manner that plus and minus, not just in an atom, but in physiological parts and in nature, we see everything, even though it's opposite, it's in connection. And this connection we're not capable of carrying out. At the human level, we've received this opportunity to do it, but we're not doing it. And if we succeed in doing it, then we will know the secret of life. We will begin to feel in the connection between us and plus and minus in everyone, with others, with our fellow man. If we begin to see plus and minus connected, if we begin to correct ourselves to add atoms, particles, humanity I'm talking about, greater and greater, more complex connections, that all of humanity will be as one system, one apparatus, then the system will begin to reveal to us the upper life. How nature behaves, the forces hidden in nature, these secret forces. Secret because we don't feel them. How they act. Suddenly we'll feel it. But we need to see. Where can we see it? In our body, we can see, but it's at the living level. It doesn't tell us what we're here for and why. It tells us how the body exists, and it's truly a great machine. But what society exists for in a human being, nature won't explain to us. This we need to reveal by ourselves. Therefore, the equation, love thy neighbor as thyself, brings us to building the system from which we can discover life outside human society, outside our short personal life, outside life in general, on this small stage of life. We'll know how to, acquire nature, divinity. It's one and the same. In Gematria, it's nature. We can attain it by building a system in which it will be revealed. This system is human society that is connected in mutuality and equality. Love thy neighbor as thyself. You explained in such a fascinating way the secret of good life that's in nature. Because in our subconscious, a person asks for it. He thinks that it can supply him with a pension and health care and all kinds of vacation. But that won't satisfy him, because we live much better than we did 200 years ago. But we're still not attaining happiness. Happiness can only be attained in this manner. I have a feeling that this is how many people feel, that they feel this can't be everything that life has to offer. There has to be something else. In an instinctive manner, we push these things away. We don't want to get into it because we've given up. We're afraid to discover that we're not capable of discovering this. Because then our entire life was zero, not worth anything. And in that way, I forget, I disconnect that part, those questions I put on the side. And like kids with their toys, they remain there and that's it. What's most exciting in what you explain is the secret of good life. All of us, we're all trying in some manner to look for them, to see where they are. We go out to sometimes journeys, all kinds of places in the world, looking for that secret of the eternal happiness. And in this process we went through these programs, last shows, we discovered that there's a connection between the secret of love, the secret of life, eternal life, and the Jewish culture. What's the connection? This technology of attaining the secret of life exists in the people of Israel. Because the people of Israel is not a people, but rather that same group of people from the days of Abraham, they stood next to him and put in front of themselves a goal. We have to discover the secret of life. And that's why they called themselves Israel, Yashar Kel, directly toward God, to discover that force managing life. Our desire is to see our King. That's it. Nothing less. It says in the Torah many times that Moses said, "Show me yourself, show me who you are," etc. And the goal of creation is that a person discovers this force of nature that acts, and it's not that he discovers it, but the fact that he discovers it, he identifies it, and he rises up to the same complete, perfect level. It's not my body that lives. My body lives for a certain amount of years, gets worn down, and that's it. But in the meantime, the fact that I'm connecting to everyone and the connection between us, there's the secret of eternal life. This we need to understand, that like a plus cannot exist without minus, but rather only on the condition that they're together, that they connect to an atom, and then the atom has never-ending energy. It's rotating endlessly with its parts, and that's how it lives, that's how it continues, because there's balance between the parts. There's some materials that aren't in balance, and then they have energy coming out, radioactive energy, waves. So they finish at some point. They become simpler. But the entire secret of life is in the mutual connection between plus and minus, opposite parts, that if they connect between them, they create life. At the animal level, it's man and wife, man and woman, or animals. When they come together, they create new life. Between us, if create this system where we're all plus and minus toward one another, if we put together such a system, we will feel inside the system eternal life. A life where we don't feel that anyone's disappearing because we're in contact with one another. It's a mutual connection. And since we're connecting between us, not in our bodies, but rather with our inner forces, if I come out of myself and connect with my fellow man, love thy neighbor as thyself. It's as if I'm coming out of myself, and he comes out towards me, and in that manner we begin to be connected to one another, everyone around everyone, like an atom. So in that we create a system that lives forever. It has no connection to our animal life. I'm coming out of him toward my fellow man. And in that manner, each and every one operates. Therefore, the sentence, love thy neighbor as thyself, it's the secret of eternal life. We call this spiritual life or upper life, meaning higher in degree than our life. And that is what actually we yearn for in our subconscious. But because we don't have any choice, we're already used to not going up higher than our usual bodily life, because there it's a space where you only have questions and answers and desperation, and if you go into there, then you don't have any way to enjoy life. You're getting into troubles. Then our ego instinctively pulls us back by our legs and says, I come back down to this life, and that's it. Deal with it, and that's it. How is it possible that nature actually selected possibly that same people, Jewish people, that has incited? It's as if he gave them the key for the secret of the good life. How did that happen? It's not a people, we spoke of that, but it was rather all of our civilization that was in Babylon 3,500 years ago. That's where the ego increased, our desire to receive, and part of them felt that along with this ego they wanted to go implement it. The bad force, the rejecting force, the competitive force. And along with that, part of them began to feel uncomfortable. Okay, I'll go implement it, but I'm going to go argue with everyone. And then what's going to happen? Along with that, they began to feel with their increased ego that this increased ego is precisely asking me now about the essence of life. What for? Why is that? That's why it says about Abraham that he would go out, look at the stars. Before him, people also looked at the stars. Thousands of years are ahead of him. But from his new ego, that he looked at everything, he began to think there has to be an upper force, that nature is completely smart, is completely purposeful, and that's what I want to discover. it was revealed in him and many other people in Babylon. About 5,000 went along with Abraham from Babylon to Canaan, that he connected them together. He brought them closer to him. He began to advertise this item. Some began to run to all kinds of corporal insights, and he, from his advertising, he gathered people with that question that was burning in them. That's what's called Beit Avraham, the house of Abraham. That's what Rambam wrote, that they're called Beit Avraham, the house of Abraham. And they left Babylon and went to Canaan. They went to Israel. Those people felt that that's what they needed, that the ego that grew, it's great, it pushed them forward, but it's just a minus that grew. Where's the plus against it, that we can balance out life? And that's who Abraham started to talk to. We can balance our ego with the positive force that we have to develop between us, ourselves, and then this plus and minus that will connect together. From this side, the minus, which is our ego, and from this side, the connection, the love, the mutual love, bestowal, compassion. If we do this, we'll have a closed system. And inside this closed system, which is many people together, we'll begin to feel inside the system perfection. We'll begin to feel inside the system the force of nature, the hidden force of nature that's hidden from us at the moment. And in this general system, we'll feel the force of life, which will be a system of plus minus, this dynamic living. And this is what they discovered. And ever since then, we have the wisdom of Kabbalah. And ever since then, we know what they're talking about, that love thy neighbor as thyself. This approach opens an opening for eternal life, that our body lives as a body, and I just deal with my spirit that is entirely all my efforts, apart from my basic minimal treatment with my body, I have to look after the eternal part of myself. If I'm in this system, then I feel this eternal life. What does it mean to be concerned about the development of the soul, the connection between us, and in that way discover the force of balance, the force that covers the plus and minus together? That's what divinity is called. That's the force that's in nature, which is why nature is a complete closed system. According to the explanation you're giving now, it turns out that to live as a Jew truly, like it was at the beginning, that these people was created, is to direct my life to connect with others with the goal of discovering the secret of life. Is this the definition of what it is to truly be a Jew? Is this the main thing in life? That in this new connection between us, we can discover the secret of life. Yes, that's what it's called being a Jew, reaching unity with the upper force, with nature. And then I become like him. We hear these sentences a lot, but we don't know where it's from. That the people of Israel, up to God, and all kinds of sayings. But that's actually Judaism, the key to the eternal life. And it's not just in us. It was in 5,000 Babylonians that Abraham brought together and then brought them to Canaan, and they are the foundation of the people of Israel. The people of Israel are not a people. It's precisely that same gathering of people that gathered themselves around this mission. The 7 billion citizens of Earth, they are now reaching that same question. What does that say? What does that mean that we're the chosen people? What does it mean that we're the chosen people? Since then, since we're still developing, there's times when we're developing towards connecting, like in the time of Abraham, and until the destruction of the temple, there were good periods, there were less good periods. There were periods in which the connection, the love, the mutual responsibility was very highlighted among us, and that's called the times of redemption, that we would reveal the upper force that's between us, the connection, love, truly feeling eternal life. And that's what the Kabbalists wrote in all their books. And there were periods when we would fall from this feeling of connection, precisely to a feeling of rejection, distance between us, which is called the melting pot, kibbutz galuyot. We also had the exiles like that. Now we're at the fourth exile. 3 redemptions, and now we're in the last final one, meaning the revelation of that same upper force. But first, we need to organize the foundation, the connection. When you describe it, it feels like in each and every one of those, that same people has in their heart, they have DNA. We have DNA inside of us. First of all, in DNA, of course, there's also, they check in and they see that there's something different. But especially, it's called rishimot. We have rishimot in us that are pushing us toward connecting. So the people of Israel is special in its behavior, in its culture, education, all those things. Even though we took everything lately from the nations of the world, even afterward, we still have a completely different approach to life. Inside this journey that we went through, the minute we understand that the secret of life exists in the root, the very deep root of Judaism, of the Jewish culture, then we suddenly begin to see, like we saw throughout all the shows, that everything, all the stories of the Mikra and all the traditions and all the things that we do, they all have a very specific direction. What's that same direction? That all this is trying to signal to us. All the holidays and traditions and the ways we behave, the Jewish judicial system, the laws, they're all directed toward connection. All of them. Their secret, their inner force, their inner significance is to bring a person to connect with his fellow man. That's it. However you look at it. If we get into the inner significance of each and every sentence, every holiday, every act, everything that's written for us, that there's no nation where there's laws, such rich laws and so deep like we have. Thousands of papers written. The others have maybe altogether one sentence, which is a great law in the Torah, love thy neighbor as thyself. It's the destiny, the mission, the direction of all of the commandments, meaning everything we need to do. What happens when we connect between us, when we begin this connection between us in society? If we begin to connect, first of all, we cannot begin. We cannot use this information for the entire nation. But if we begin to connect, even in the smallest possible manner, that's called, according to our tradition, a minyan, 10 people praying. If we take 10 people and begin to connect between us, we begin to reveal inside this connection between us, as a result of the connection, that inside the network of connections between us, if we carry out this, inside this network, we'll discover an additional force, an additional characteristic that's mutual, that's called love. It cannot be that one person loves the other. I love someone and he hates me. That's impossible. It has to be mutual. It has to be that I come out of myself, that with that I'm heading into the man, fellow man. Not like we say today, I'm going to get a piece of you, but meaning that I feel your inner desire and I want to fill it. That's the cause. That's the sign of love. And also your inner desire to discover our eternal life. So we connect at the end of the day, not for the sake of making our life better here on earth, but rather we connect, but rather to discover the eternal life. That's the goal. Why can't we discover it on our own? You cannot discover the force of bestowal, the mutual love, mutual bestowal. In that you begin to feel the entire nature is a feeling of love and bestowal. You can't feel it if you don't generate that same attribute, feeling in yourself. How can we now, if we look at this entire journey that's so powerful in this process, we want to start connecting that same vision, that same futuristic vision that we all want to reach, to that deep root. We want to get the strength from there. We want to pump it from our roots. It feels like, this is how I feel it, that there's some future that we want to really reach. There's some past. How do we connect them? How do we pump from the past that same strength and head on to the good life? I don't feel any problem with that. I feel that I myself also, I'm right on the edge between the past and the future. And with me and inside, it connects very, very nicely in a manner that they complete each other in a perfect, wonderful way. Because all we have from the future, from the days of, from the past, yes, from the past, from the days of Abraham until today, it's as if I feel, and we spoke about it a lot, that precisely it's clear to me what I'm taking from this whole past, how it's coming together, it's complex, how it's ready for me to use it in order to now use it properly to achieve the future, to achieve unity with everyone, so that in this connection I'll discover my upper life. And this entire implementation is called implementing what the wisdom of Kabbalah has given to us, or implementing the study or the integral education. That's precisely what we need to do. We don't have anything left in this world. We made a very long way. Until today, we reached a state where we're giving up, and it's the best state. It's not a crisis. A crisis is a birth. The correct translation of the word crisis is birth. Crisis is that same bicycle, those rocks that a person gives birth on, she sits and gives birth on. It's actually a place from which the new life comes. And therefore, I look even in Greek at the word crisis. It's also, and in Chinese and all kinds of languages, the word crisis means birth. It's something new. How do you explain the crisis in the Israeli society, and how can you define its new birth? The desperation that we're all the time in the same wars, that we're not advancing as a society. We see that the gaps are growing, that the people are more and more desperate. How much longer can we hang on like this? Our kids are escaping abroad. We're being more hated by the entire world. It's waves. There's another wave of anti-Semitism and pressures, etc. We see that there's no end to it. And along with all the desperation in the world, the situation is very threatening on the one hand. And on the other hand, I see in it an opportunity precisely. Let's make an accounting and see what's ahead of us. So how do you turn this shattering to birth of a new Israeli society? It's only by understanding that in our hands we have the key to happiness, for our happiness and the entire world. And that's what the world is demanding of us, and that we should demand of ourselves. We'll do it for ourselves and for the entire world. Also for the corporal life that I spoke about, and also what do we attain? What do we suggest? What are we attaining for ourselves and for the whole world? Eternal life. Eternal life that has to do with the human level. Throughout history, our ego was truly burying us in the corporal life. We were only worried about corporal life. Now we can make a calculation above this corporal life. You're talking about the secret of life being in connection. The connection between people, love between people. Well, the connection and love is one and the same. And you're saying the breakage of the Israeli society today doesn't make you fed up, because that's precisely where something new will come. The question is, if you truly believe that all the separation that we have today, secular, left, right, rich, there's so many divisions, and if you look at it, then in each part there's also another endless amount of separations. Each person is so separate from the other, in which each person is their own individual in himself. The question is, do you think that there's still a possibility in our society, the strength and inner force that is enough to bridge above all these gaps, above all this separation and diversity? There's more immigration in the last decade, and they're not being absorbed here properly. Society is, since we created the country, founded the country, there's a process where everyone's coming to a country and they're each going their own way, and it's continuing. The question is, do you feel, do you sense that we have enough strength inside ourselves to connect all this diversity? What magic will connect it all together? I assume that you're not talking about us all becoming one size and Nitsa and I will look exactly the same. That's not the intention. The intention is some kind of connection from another type of connection. Do you think it's possible to implement it? that the breakage can transform in 1 second to birth? Really, in one moment. First of all, because we have it in our root, and we see that we can sit people down, but not that they'll begin to argue like parliament members, but they'll begin to talk about the ability to connect, the ability through connection to reach something higher, something more valuable. They'll discover between them, they'll start to connect, and they'll understand that there's a deep inner connection between them. That's called Moreshet Avot, our father's legacy, because we were connected in this network, and this network remained, and it exists between us. We simply need to renew it slightly, and we can renew it in one very short act. And precisely because we have the revelation of evil, what does that mean? That we see to what extent we're disconnected. Each of us is disconnected from the other. How much we disregard one another, that we're not a people, that we have no foundation, no common foundation. Because every nation has their common foundation, that we live together, etc., but we don't feel together in any manner, in anything. And therefore, the current situation is precisely correct to begin connecting. So this common denominator that we have is that same force of Abraham, that connection that we had once upon a time that exists in us, and it lives and it's just hidden inside of us. We need to awaken it, and we need to begin truly connecting between everyone, in our groups, in all kinds of places, until we begin to feel in each 10, in 20, 30 people, it doesn't matter, that connect, they suddenly feel, yes, this is the patent. This is the means for reaching a new level of connection, for opening up the world, a force in which I can fix all the issues. If we reveal to ourselves this force of the unity, and we show it to humanity, then we'll begin to feel that this is precisely what they wanted and expected and anticipated from us. And therefore they said we're the source of all the problems in the world, but they just didn't know how to express it. But they had this natural claim against us, but they didn't know themselves what's happening and why. That when they asked them, they used to throw around all kinds of accusations. When they asked us, we'd say, "What? Who are we? We're good people." We won't be good until we bring it to them. Because without us, they don't have any ability to reach something good. You're talking about the way the world relates to us, and I want to ask something really on the most practical level. If we look at what we went through here over the last 100 years in Israel, or even let's go to the end, our situation today, we'll see that on the one hand, we succeeded in a really short time. We created a country that can compete in its achievements with any country, and maybe it's even leading in the world in its potential and innovation and creativity. And on the other hand, if we check what we spend our resources on, we'll see most of it is spent today on protection, defense from the world, and a lot of resources also go in the garbage because unfortunately we have a lot of cheating and violence and the quantity of resources that we have to give toward protection from the world and from one another is so great that we don't, even though we're very successful, we don't have resources to make a good life here. We don't have resources to make a Garden of Eden here. Why? Because you're a robber. You're robbing happiness from the world. The whole world is also saying that about you. The Jews and the land of Israel is causing bad to the whole world. You're robbing our happiness. You're robbing from us the eternal good life. We, the nations of the world, feel that you are preventing from us our good life. This is how we feel. So you're robbers. And this is how we look at you. That you're foreign, weird, and something's not okay here. I feel in you, as a Jew, that you're always robbing from me. You're always draining me, trying to get something out of me. Something's happening here. I don't know how to explain it, but that's how I feel. Can it change? I feel them. This is how they relate to us. They always used to say the Jews are robbers, but where's the robbing? The fact that you're not bringing them the method for happiness. So I'm asking, do you think the sensation, can it be changed? It depends on you, on us. Yes, it doesn't depend on them. Okay, so let's go with that. Let's say we make a change, and we build here truly that same force of connection, of love. How will life appear in Israel in its most materialistic manner? What does the country need to waste its money on? It's not money. You will be in the Garden of Eden. First of all, the force that we will all begin to discover in Israel and in the whole world is the upper force, the force of the perfect force of nature, between plus and minus, where there's synergy, that there's a connection, that there's balance in everything. Like the spies in Israel discovered. What fruits Israel has, that everything's big, that everything's great. So what does it come to symbolize? There's grapes that they carry on a bar between them. That's called the land of Israel. If you get into connection, that's what you receive. You're talking about abundance. Love of milk and honey? Yes. Not honey, it's an allegory. What happens with tourism, commerce, economy, security, our image, the security of Israelis abroad? Like in a family, in a nice, good family, connected, well, where each one feels close to the other. More than close, completing the other. That each and every one can't live without the other. That each one feels that they are completing this single system called the soul. What is the soul? The mutual connection that we feel between us. That in this connection we reveal the upper force, the general force of nature, of God. That's what you discover. And then your entire corporal life go down to a degree, to a level. What you need to give to your body, give to your body. You'll have enough of the fruits of Israel. So let me understand. When you say that Israeli society, you're neutralizing all the bad forces, everything will come into balance. Right now you have a lot of minus power that you're not balancing out with plus. So what do you expect? You're always on the offensive. You want to neutralize it. And it's always growing. and in the entire world, if you begin to build a system, that this system reaches unity, connection, that all these minuses and pluses, they all work inside this integralness and this mutual connection. You'll have the quantity of energy, of happiness. You won't discover anything bad, not in health. There's nothing. Everything is full. Because nature is perfect, complete. If you go in that direction, then you discover perfection in every area of your life. When Israel was founded, the symbol that was chosen to represent Israel was the menorah. The menorah that they say it's the symbol of the Jews that represents some beacon of light for the whole world. What is that light, and how does it truly spread in the world? How, if we as a society begin to carry out that same secret of life, we're all connected. All of Israel is connected in a single network. Today it's clear to everyone that what happens in every place in the world, suddenly here there's a revolution and there's a revolution there. The world is entirely not because of the internet, but because there's this inner network connecting all of us. And then what happens, we need to understand that thoughts and desires are floating around, ideas, it's all like that. So if we begin even with us, and precisely in Israel, if here as the people of Israel, we begin to build this new life in accordance with nature, it'll spread in the whole world immediately. Because there's nothing we can do. We're the center of the world. We're always in the targets. It's not acts that we need to do toward another nation, but just the fact that even without that, it's enough for us to connect. They'll come by themselves to demand and help, to ask to help. There's no question about it, because the general systems that will begin to activate here of the connection, the mutual connection, they will begin to operate on them and obligate them, because we will begin to connect with the force that's operating all of nature. And then we will truly be the ones operating things. Like they say, it's the Jews turning the world around. We will really be turning the world around. Then we will be turning it around. We're almost at the end of the show. I'm very excited on the inside, and I want us to do a bit of summary, what we learned from this whole journey that we did with you. So maybe let's start with Nitsa. Nitsa, what did you learn about getting to know our root and what we can learn about life in Israeli society today? First of all, I learned that actually all the principles for building this wonderful society that's living in a mutual, loving way, they're all deep down inside our roots. It's in our DNA. It's in each and every one of us. It's in our heart. Abraham is not some faraway story. The system, the same connection that he built with connection and love between people, it's something that's deep in each of our hearts. And it's like some diamond that's covered with many, many layers that we have to shake off. And remember that somewhere inside each and every one of us has some kind of inner force that if we connect it together, we'll begin to feel that same love, that same good life that we want and we anticipate. And we also understand that in all our acts that we're doing as the Jewish society, Israeli society, and our traditions, ceremonies, giving birth to a boy and weddings, they all teach us all the time how to awaken that same inner diamond inside us, how to awaken that power of love that began to awaken in us back then, and awaken it to begin to create waves to create something so that it will spread throughout the great network that we live in. My summary is one sentence. You said before that in one moment, in the new connection between people, they can light this force inside, this force of love, and then it suddenly dawned on me that I saw lately, and I didn't know how to explain it to myself. I had all kinds of meetings with people that I don't know, and suddenly I felt we're so different with the most different people, and suddenly I felt that if there's some frequency of connection, suddenly, I don't know how to explain it, it's like this fire was lit. I didn't understand what was happening. There's suddenly like a bonfire of good, of joy. It's very, very powerful. That's my summary. What's your summary, Rav Laitman? What would you like us to learn about the new life in Israeli society? That we'll do a summary of our history. We'll take this means from it for attaining a connection, what all our forefathers, all the wise ones gave us, and from this legacy we'll carry it out. Connection, and not to forget that all of Judaism is all love thy neighbor as thyself, and from there we'll be able to rise up to truly new life at a standard that is above the degree of the human level. Thank you very, very much, Rav Laitman. Thank you, Nitza. Thank you for you being with us. We'll go out on a journey together and the connection between us. All the best.